Joining us also for this particular information bulletin is the politician who has been raising this matter for the first time and all the way through in the Parliament as well as in the public domain. Bill Shorten, good morning to you.
Good morning, John. Nice to see you.
You were calling for a royal commission into Robodebt. What would that achieve and what impact might it have on a court case?
I believe Robodebt is a shocking scandal. Hundreds of thousands of Australians, many of whom were vulnerable, were served with illegal debt notices by a government breaking the law. This government raised hundreds of millions, probably billions of dollars illegally from Australians when it didn't have the power to do so. Now the government for 4 years has denied it's a problem. Good work by the Victorian Legal Aid Commission, good work by Gordon Legal and the class action. We finally forced the government to not only admit it's unlawful, but now they're refunding money back to people. But what we haven't got from the government is why. How for 4 years can a government break the law? And they've been hiding behind legal arguments. Only a royal commission can make sure that Australians never again have the government, in the pursuit of economic advantage, break the law and mistreat Australians.
It's so unlikely that this government will order a royal commission to inquire into itself and its predecessors from its own side of politics. Is it just flying a kite, calling for a royal commission?
Well, when I called for the Banking Royal Commission when I was leader of the Labor Party, everyone said the government will never agree. In the end, the coalition government surrendered, started the Banking Royal Commission from pressure from Labor and consumers. So I don't, merely because this government, this law-breaking government, this poor-shaming government, who always blame the vulnerable, merely because they say no, doesn't mean that I'm going to give up. And if they won't do it, when Labor eventually gets elected, we will.
So you want an opportunity to get the individual politicians?
This is not about a witch hunt. This is to make sure that never again does a government of Australia systematically and willfully break the law and charge a whole lot of less well-off people bills and money which they'd never owed. So if the Royal Commission chooses to, and it'll be up to the Royal Commission, Scott Morrison was the Social Security Minister who invented this monster. He was the Treasurer who boasted about it. He's the Prime Minister who has defended it. There's Alan Tudge, not a household name, but he's a Liberal Minister for Human Services. There's Christian Porter. He pops up again and again. He was Social Services Minister. Then he was Attorney General. And of course, the current embattled Minister, Stuart Robert, more famous for charging the taxpayer $40,000 for his internet bills in a year. Listen, they may all have to front up, as they should, because we just want to find out what went wrong, who knew what, when, and why did hundreds of thousands of ordinary Aussies get treated like, lawbreakers.
Is this payback for the Pink Bats inquiry?
No. This is the most significant failure of policy, of a government rolling out a policy in a social services area that I think we've ever seen in the history of Australia. What this is trying to make sense to people who did nothing else other than be a university student, who did nothing else other than be unemployed. These are people who earned pockets of money wherever they could. The government just relied on a computer to average this weekly or 2 weekly income and pretend that's what they got all year. And then it sent them letters of demand. It never checked its facts. People weren't able to travel overseas. People weren't able to get jobs. People were under psychological pressure. Relationships broke up. People self-harmed and worse. And this government doesn't even know who did it.
So the government also says that when your party was in power, when the Labor Party were in power, you used data matching to recover monies that had been wrongly paid too. What's the difference between what you did in office and what you say they did wrong?
The Morrison government's telling lies to Australians. When Labor would find a discrepancy between someone's social security evidence and the tax office data, then Labor would make sure there were human public servants in Centrelink who would go and check with the employer to get to the bottom of it.
Before a claim was made for repayment?
Before a debt was issued.
And what's happening now is it's just done by computer. There's no...
Straightforward. We used to, as I understand, in Department of Social Security, red flag goes up. Look, tax office says one thing, Department of Social Security info says something else. There's a discrepancy. What would happen is that under previous governments, Liberal and Labor, we would get Centrelink trained staff to have a look at it, not go and hassle the individual, go and ask the employer, oh, is this person making, a lot of money or a little money? We would have a human being check the records. This government eliminated it, automated it, it just used computer systems. They thought they were saving money. They thought that everyone's ripping the system off and they didn't think they needed to check. Instead, they would ask the individual, oh, are you telling the truth here, and make the individual go and get their records? It was all wrong. It totally changed the system.
If there's cross-party support or somehow a Royal Commission does happen, how broad would its terms of reference be? How far would it go?
We'd have to negotiate the terms of reference, but it should be about the Robobebt scandal. I would like it to find out, did anyone ever check that the scheme was legal before they introduced it? When the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, the watchdog, raised problems with the scheme, why did that get ignored? I'd like to know who knew what when. I also would like to know how many people were affected. I'd also like to find out what happened to all the people who were affected. And I'd also like them to start checking, stop relying on machines and computers to do what humans should do. And I would like them to revisit the Liberal national philosophy of treating all people on the safety net as potential cheats. The safety net is there to help people. It's not there as an act of charity from the government for which the people who receive it should be on their knees saying, thank you, Mr Morrison.
So you've got the political situation to worry about, Bill Shorten. Does the class action help or hinder your call for it to be resolved politically?
Thanks, John. I just wanted to say through you to all of the 60,000 people participating in the Gordon legal class action, thank you. I do not believe this government would have refunded $721 million but for this class action. Parliament couldn't get them to back down. All of the actions over 4 years couldn't get them to back down. But when this government had to face the music of a class action and all of you, the reason why there is a refund so far is due to the class action. I just want to encourage people to hang in there, talk to your friends about it. You shouldn't get justice in this country by having to take your government to court. But what you've done is you've helped 700,000 people and you're helping make sure this never happens again. So the class action is already kicking goals and it's got more to go, I think.
Bill Shorten, thank you.